Some stories don't sound wrong until it's too late to walk away. I was there when Vanilla Ice was everywhere. Sold out arenas, screaming fans. Fame moving faster than we could follow. But fame's not the whole story, not even close. I saw what came with it. Closed door meetings, men who never gave their names, offers that didn't feel like choices. He started to ask questions, and that's when everything shifted. Sleep stopped. So did trust. He began keeping his back to the wall. He wasn't scared of the crowds, he was scared of the silence after. Something was circling him, and every time he tried to pull away, it got closer. More patient, more deliberate. This isn't about music. It's about what tried to reach him, and the night something stepped forward to collect. We met at the very start, before the lights, before the madness. I was just a dancer working local clubs in Dallas, same as Rob, before he was Vanilla Ice, before Ice Ice Baby. He used to show up in cut-up jeans and this crooked smile, pulling off moves like gravity never applied to him. When the track blew up, none of us were ready, not even him. One week it was open mics and duct-taped speakers. The next, it was private jets and platinum plaques. I wasn't just a dancer anymore. I became part of the crew, part of the shield, part of the silence. You travel with someone long enough, you stop seeing the celebrity and start seeing the man. And Rob, he wasn't built for this. The first time I noticed something was off, we were in LA, not even 2 months into the rise, and the label had already booked this insane rooftop after party. The guest list wasn't musicians, it was politicians, CEOs, strange types in $3,000 suits who didn't blink enough. Rob leaned over to me and said, "Why do I feel like I'm being watched at my own party?" He didn't drink that night, didn't dance. He just stood there back straight, scanning the crowd like he was looking for an exit. That was his first number. He said it to some guy who approached him near the edge of the rooftop. Smooth voice, sunglasses on at midnight. "You're invited," he said. "Private thing, real ones only." Rob smiled and said, "I'm good." It was casual, polite, nothing to it, but the guy didn't walk away. He just stared, then nodded once and melted into the crowd. We both felt it, that moment where something shifted. I didn't ask what was said, and Rob didn't offer. But after that night, something followed us. Not in the way you think. There weren't any threats, no dramatic phone calls, just this presence. The lights backstage started flickering during sound checks. Rob's hotel room would be moved at the last minute, every time. There were footsteps at night in empty halls, whispers that stopped when we turned around. He never said he was scared, but he started sleeping with music on. He kept the blinds closed, even in the penthouse suites. And when the next invitation came, this time from someone even bigger, he didn't answer at all. Another number. And I think that's when it really began. The second time it happened, we were in New York. Rob had just wrapped a late-night taping, and we were crashing at a penthouse suite in Midtown, the kind with ceilings that disappear into darkness and floor-to-ceiling windows that never open. I remember standing there staring out at the city, wondering how we got here so fast. It all still felt fake. That's when she showed up. Not a knock, not a call, just appeared. Madonna. She walked in like she owned the place. And honestly, she probably did. Her driver handed off her coat without a word and disappeared like fog. She was dressed in white silk, something that looked like it wasn't made in this decade. She didn't look at me, only Rob. "You're not busy, are you?" she said, voice like smoke. He laughed at first, tried to keep it light, but she wasn't joking. She talked to him low, private, too quiet for me to hear. I stayed back, but something about the way she leaned in, it wasn't flirtation. It was something older, like she was making an offer. And Rob, he froze for just a second, then shook his head. "I'm too young," he said. "I'm not ready for that." Her face didn't change. She just looked at him for a long time, then said something I'll never forget. "No one's ever ready. That's the point." She kissed him on the cheek, smiled at me without blinking, and walked out the same way she came in. Rob stood there for a long time after she left, still, staring into nothing. He finally looked at me and said, "She asked me to marry her." I thought he was joking. I even laughed, but he didn't. She said it wouldn't be public, just binding. Binding. That word stuck with me. I didn't know what it meant then. I think he did. We didn't speak about it again, but something changed after that night. The shadows got heavier, the dreams got worse. He said no again, and it echoed louder this time. At our next sound check, the audio board caught fire, just sparked and lit up, no explanation. Our driver quit mid-tour, said he was done driving dead men. And Rob, he started getting nosebleeds, always after midnight. He never mentioned Madonna again, but I noticed he stopped looking people in the eye, like he was scared he'd see something staring back. That was the second number, and whatever was listening wasn't used to rejection. The next invitation came with a name Rob couldn't ignore. Diddy. It was whispered to us backstage during a show in Miami. A runner from Bad Boy, dressed like a club promoter, but with a stare that made my skin itch. He leaned in and said, "Private event. Diddy's people only." VIP Rob looked at me. I could tell he didn't want to go, but the pressure was different now. We just had back-to-back shows pulled with no warning. His label rep stopped answering calls. Venues suddenly rebooked. Something was squeezing him, so he said yes. We rolled up to the house in Coral Gables around 2 a.m. The mansion looked like it had been carved out of a movie set. Giant statues, glowing pools, gold trim on the windows. But it was quiet, too quiet. Inside, the music was low. Not party low, controlled low. There were no cameras, no phones. Every guest wore black, except Rob. We were greeted by a woman I'd never seen before. Tall, pale, not a model, something older. She didn't smile, just touched Rob's hand and said, "Welcome to the fold." He pulled away. I stayed close to him the entire night. The energy was wrong. People didn't dance. They circled, stared, whispered. There was a room in the back, closed off, with guards standing in front like it was a vault. At one point, Diddy himself appeared, all charm, all flash. Pulled Rob into a quiet corner and talked for a long time. I couldn't hear them, but I could see Rob's jaw tighten, the same way it did when Madonna made her offer. Later, as we were about to leave, one of the guards from the back room approached him and simply said, "It's time." Rob froze. He didn't speak. Just turned to me and said, "Let's go." We walked out without saying another word. Once we were back in the car, I asked him what happened. He didn't answer right away. Then he muttered, "It wasn't a party." I looked at him. "What was it?" He shook his head. "A step." That's all he'd say. After that night, things escalated, fast. We were shadowed. Everywhere we went, someone was watching. Studio engineers stopped showing up. Promoters started canceling appearances, and Rob, he started throwing up in the middle of the night. He said it felt like his body was rejecting something he hadn't eaten, but that was his third number. He didn't go in the room. He didn't follow the voice. He left, and from that night on, I swear, something started following him. Not a person, not a fan, something else. They told us it was just a meeting. One of those industry handshakes where the right people nod, say the right things, and magic happens. "Clive just wants to talk," the rep said. "Big picture stuff." We were back in New York, and Rob was tired. Not the kind of tired you fix with sleep, the kind that sets into your bones and makes everything feel heavy. But we went. The building didn't have a name on it, just an address. The lobby was all mirrors and marble, but no one was at the desk. No music, no phones, no footsteps, just stillness. They took us to the 19th floor. I remember the number because the elevator paused for a second between 18 and 19, like it wasn't sure it wanted to stop. The room we entered wasn't big. It was more like a gallery. White walls, a single chair in the center, and a long table with one man seated behind it. Clive Davis. He didn't stand. He didn't smile. He just looked at Rob and said, "We have a chance to reintroduce you." He spoke calmly, methodically, like he was explaining a chess move. Kept referencing the new vision, exposure, complete vulnerability. I remember that word most. Vulnerability. He said it 3 times. Rob asked what that meant. Clive just looked at him and said, "We need the people to see you." The silence that followed was suffocating. Rob shifted in his chair. I could see his jaw lock again. He didn't respond right away, just stared at the table like there was something written there that only he could read. Then quietly, he stood up. "No," he said, not angry, not disrespectful, just final. Clive didn't argue, didn't move. He just blinked slowly and said, "Shame. You would have been unforgettable." As we left the room, I looked back, and I swear I saw someone else sitting in the corner, someone I hadn't noticed when we came in. They didn't speak, didn't even breathe, just watched us leave. We didn't talk on the way down, didn't speak again until we were halfway back to the hotel. Then Rob said, "They don't want music. They want ownership." I didn't know what to say, because deep down, I knew he was right. That night, he had a nightmare. I heard him screaming through the wall. I ran to his room, but by the time I got there, he was already awake, drenched in sweat, staring at the mirror. He didn't tell me what he saw, but he packed his things the next morning, said he needed a break. We skipped the next appearance, and the one after that. But the calls kept coming, and so did the knocks. By the time we got to the Arsenio Hall show, Rob was frayed. He hadn't slept more than 2 hours in days. He stopped eating full meals, spent most of his time pacing hotel rooms, staring at curtains like he expected someone to be behind them. But he showed up. He always did, even when it was clear the walls were closing in. Backstage felt off from the start. The green room lights flickered constantly, not enough to draw attention, just enough to make you wonder if your eyes were playing tricks. The producers were polite, too polite. Everyone spoke to Rob like he was already done, like they knew something he didn't. I remember him looking at me before we walked out. "They're gonna try to embarrass me," he said. I told him he was ready, that he could handle anything. I didn't believe it. And when the cameras rolled, I watched it happen in real time. Arsenio didn't ask questions. He launched attacks. "Why'd you lie about being from the streets? Do you even write your own stuff? Are you a real rapper or just a product?" Every time Rob opened his mouth to answer, the crowd groaned or laughed. Arsenio pressed harder, his smile razor sharp. And Rob, he cracked. He started answering questions that weren't asked, eyes darting, voice rising. At one point he said, "They made me say that," but no one knew what he meant. Or maybe they did and just played dumb. When the segment ended, Rob didn't wait for a wrap-up. He stood up, mic still clipped to his collar, and walked off the stage. The hallway outside the studio was freezing. He looked at me, jaw trembling, and whispered, "They set that up." That wasn't an interview. That was a message. I didn't know what to say. We just kept walking. That night, something new started happening. Every time he closed his eyes, he said he heard voices, not in words exactly, more like suggestions, instructions, repeated phrases he couldn't quite make out. He told me one stuck with him. It came in a whisper, just under his breath, when he was too tired to fight it. "Just let go." I asked him what that meant. He didn't answer. He just turned on the TV and raised the volume. When we checked out the next morning, Rob didn't talk to anyone. He wore sunglasses indoors, signed nothing, shook no hands. Later that night, we got the call. It wasn't from a manager or the label. It was just a voice, a location, a time, no explanation. Rob stood in silence, listening. Then he looked at me and said, "It's him." I didn't ask who, because I already knew. We got the call around 1:30 a.m., no names, no reason, just a room number at the Bel Age Hotel in West Hollywood. Rob didn't ask questions. He just said, "It's Suge." That name carried weight, the kind that makes grown men change flights, and something in his voice told me this wasn't just business. We rode the elevator in silence. When we reached the suite, two guys opened the door without a word. Big, heavy set, the kind you don't make eye contact with unless you're ready to lose a tooth. Inside, the lights were dim and the room felt colder than it should have. Not just cool, sterile, like no one had breathed in it for hours. Shug sat near the glass doors that led to the balcony, calm, patient, too patient. He motioned for Rob to sit. Rob didn't. Shug smiled, stood up slowly and said, "Let's talk outside." The wind hit us immediately. High up, open air, city lights glowing below like a fire waiting to swallow you whole. Shug leaned in close, dropped the smile and said, "You know why you're here?" Rob tensed. "I don't know anything." "You do," Shug said. "And if you don't give it, I'll take it." Then Shug grabbed him, fast. 1 second Rob was standing. The next he was halfway over the edge, arms flailing, shoes scraping concrete. Shug had both hands gripping Rob's jacket, holding him over the balcony like trash ready to be dropped. That's when everything shifted. The air thickened, the wind stopped, and over Shug's shoulder something moved. I blinked, and there it was. Not a shadow, not a reflection, a presence. Tall, thin, wrong. Its face wasn't a face, just space where a face should be. A darkness that pulsed. And from that void came a sound. Not a growl, not a roar, a whisper. Sign. Rob's eyes widened. He gasped. Not from fear of the fall, from that word. He tried to speak. Sign. Louder. Closer. Curling behind his ears like smoke. Shug didn't hear it. Didn't flinch. Still holding Rob over the edge, one hand gripping tighter now, the other tightening into a fist. "You're gonna pay what's owed," Shug said, one way or another. Rob choked out a breath, struggling not to look down, but also not to look behind Shug, where the thing was now pressing in close. I took a step forward, barely breathing, and then the word came again, slower this time, drawn out like the dragging of a blade. Sign. Rob's head jerked. Sweat ran down his face, his body twitching like he was being pulled in two directions. Shug's fists, and something else that was already inside the room. "Say it," Shug demanded. "Make it right." Rob's lips trembled. He almost did, but he didn't. Instead, he screamed, "I said no." The presence paused, just for a moment, and that's when Shug yanked him back, threw him onto the balcony floor like a broken doll, turned, muttering, "Get him out of here before I change my mind." But Rob didn't move right away. He lay there staring up at the sky, chest heaving, eyes wide, whispering something over and over that I could barely hear. I knelt beside him. "What is it?" I asked. He turned his head toward me. "They were never asking," he said. "They just wanted me to stop fighting." His eyes drifted to the glass door. "They don't need your signature, just your surrender." We left that night. No police, no press, no label reps. No one asked what happened. And Rob, he walked away from everything. Because that wasn't just a balcony. It was the last step in a ritual. And whatever was behind it almost got what it came for. People think Vanilla Ice disappeared because he couldn't handle the fame, that he cracked, burned out. But the truth is, he walked. He saw what most artists never live long enough to see clearly. There's a presence in this industry, not a metaphor, not a vibe, something real. And it doesn't show up in red capes or broken mirrors. It shows up in meetings, contracts, private rooms with no windows, deals where the price isn't money. I've seen it, felt it. It doesn't scream, it doesn't chase, it waits. And every time someone says yes to something they don't understand, it gets closer. I watched Rob say no, again and again. And every no made him harder to reach, until it tried to take him physically, through people, through moments that looked like business but felt like possession. The balcony wasn't a negotiation. It was the final offer, but he didn't give in. He never signed, and that's why he lived. Not just survived, lived on his own terms, away from the cameras, far from the rooms where the air turns heavy and the lights flicker for no reason. Me? I stayed in the industry a while longer, not much longer. Eventually, I stopped getting gigs. People stopped answering my calls. One time, a producer told me, "You ask too many questions." That's when I knew. I was never supposed to tell this story, but now you've heard it. And maybe you'll stop laughing at those crazy celebrity interviews. You'll stop assuming everyone just lost it when they walk off stage and vanish. Maybe you'll stop thinking every mansion, every label party, every NDA is just part of the game. Because some things, they're not a game, they're rituals. And once you step in, there's always something waiting to collect. If you're still here, listening, pay attention. Not everything behind the music is about money or fame. Some of it goes deeper and darker. If someone offers you everything you ever wanted, take a breath, look around, and before you say yes, ask yourself what's whispering behind them. If this story made you think twice about what's really going on behind the scenes, share it, comment, send it to someone who still thinks it's all just entertainment. Because this isn't just about Rob, it's about what happens when you keep saying no, and how far they'll go to make you stop.